Alright, hi everyone. Welcome to today's RPA workshop, jointly organized by GDSC NUS and GDSC UOM. Feel free to follow our socials if you haven't already, and also check out the workshop materials below, and also join us at pigeonhole.at/GDSC-RPA and get your questions answered later. All right, so first, in the agenda today, we'll talk about the event and collaboration introduction. All right, so welcome to today's RPA workshop. This workshop is a joint collaboration between two Google Developer Student Club university chapters, GDSC, National University of Singapore, and GDSC, University of Mauritius. Today, we'll understand the motivations behind robotic process automation, RPA, explore what RPA is, explore how RPA is being utilized, and also automate a simple form filling task. All right, so GDSC NUS is a student interest group at the NUS School of Computing. We are an inclusive community, nurturing learners of technology to engage and impact communities. We are also a Tech for Good club, and we are committed to helping people utilize technology for the betterment of society. And at GDSC NUS, we have our flagship annual hackathon, Tech for Good, where students build solutions to solve challenge statements targeted at community issues. Tech for Good 2023's registration opens soon. Previous Tech for Good workshops include cybersecurity, portfolio website, and also backend as a service. These workshops are available on our YouTube channel below. And finally, do check us out at dsc.comp.nus.edu.sg. And now I'll pass over the time to Angshita from the University of Mauritius to share more about the chapter.
So hi everyone, I'm Angshita, the GDSC lead from the University of Mauritius. So basically we're doing this collaboration workshop on robotic process automation, but I would just like to tell a bit about ourselves. The GDSC club is rather new in our university, and so far we have been in collaboration with blockchain education platforms. We have done, so basically we have done workshops on cloud, and we are planning many more things. So you can still connect with us and follow us. I'll just share the links for our platforms. So we are rather active on Google on the GDSC platform itself. So you can also you can also connect with us on the GDSC platform and also on our WhatsApp groups. So now I would pass on the floor to Dr. Mohabeer without wasting any time. So you can actually brief us about what RPA is.
Thank you, Angshita. Thank you, Michael. I would like to thank all of you for inviting me for this session, and I will try to share my experience in RPA session from an industry perspective. So allow me to share my screen so that we can I can show you a bit about what RPA is all about. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Great. So RPA is not a new process. It's not a new technology. In fact, it has been inspired from existing technology. I guess everybody knows here. Everybody has used Excel. And in Excel, there was one feature that was very useful. It was macro functionality. So with macro, you could automate certain function, but it was limited to Excel only, to spreadsheet. And based on that, I guess the inventor of RPA decided, what if we could expand it to other applications? And this is how RPA came into action. So if you look at some key stats about RPA, you will see that 22% of employees' time is spent doing mundane work. That is repetitive task. In fact, in my company where I used to work, you had lots of data entry operators that was doing the same job over and over again, so that every day they would come into their office, they would log in into the portal and enter information from an Excel sheet to that portal, right? And this was kind of tedious for them because they were prone to mistakes, fatigue, and so on. And you will see that 10 errors made by a human out of every 100 steps. And this is based on a large amount of statistics that was devised from data entry operators, right? And you will see that with RPA, 25 to 50% of immediate cost saving by automating such tasks, right? And lastly, 70 to 80% of a typical rule-based process can be automated. In fact, what we did at work first was we started, before adopting RPA, we started to look at how we could identify the different processes in every department. And then we realized that these processes, if we could standardize them, we could effectively automate them. We realized that every department has a set of processes that requires repetitive tasks and certain process that requires a reflective thinking or decision making. So what do I mean by a robot? It's a software-based application that try to mimic the way human works on a computer by collecting information from one, let's say from one application and inputting it into another application, just like a human being. So RPA robots utilize the user interface to capture data and manipulate application just like human beings. What I mean by that is very simple. What I did, I observed in my organization, I observed how data entry is being done. That is, where is the source of the data and where is the sink? One typical example is most of the time you receive mail in Excel sheets as attachment, and you have to load all those data into a portal in our company, into our local ERP. So it was very difficult to devise a simple kind of button just to load it on the ERP because we had to do manual check against other spreadsheet. So what we did was we said, hey, we could solve that using a simple software, which is the RPA. And what we did was we did some background checking on the spreadsheet itself. And then what we did was to enter the information and validate each entry correctly, because I know what you might be thinking right now. Why can't we just upload the spreadsheet onto the ERP? As simple as it could have been, but it is not effectively this way in reality. In practical life, what we need to do is we need to do manual entry one by one, right? So they interpret, trigger response, and communicate with other systems in order to perform a vast variety of repetitive tasks. I do remember, again, I'm sharing lots of experience rather than just read out of the slide. My experience is my CEO asked me once, why don't we use API, which could have been very easy. But then I asked my CEO, what if they change basic functionalities on their side? And he told me, yes, that would be a problem. So what can we do to solve that? And I proposed RPA as a solution because it was just mimicking human being. And tomorrow, if let's say the interface change, you just need to tweak the robot and it will work as effectively, if not better than a human being. So RPA technologies, robotic process automation consists of three parts, which is a robotic part, process part, and the automation part. And for me, what I believe is the process part is a fundamental or most important part in robotic process automation. Why I say this? Because we've learned from failures. You will try to, most of the time, when we see amateur developers, what they do is they look for process and they try to automate the process. And this is not the way you should proceed. First of all, you need to do what we call the as-is process. So what is being done currently, how it can be improved. Secondly, how it can be optimized. Because I do remember one time I asked a data entry operator, I said, hey, why are you doing it the way you are doing it? And she told me, you know, I've learned it that way, and this is how I do it. And when I started to analyze the process, there was a far simpler way of doing the same process. And she didn't know about it because lots of time data entry operator doesn't think out of the box on how to make their process more efficient. So the task of an RPA developer initially is to be able to understand the process, to try to make the process more efficient for the human being first, and then try to automate it gradually. And most of the time what happens is we tend to believe that once we get a process, we need to be able to automate it end to end. And this is not the case, right? A process is a set of tasks, right, that allows to do something. But like I've said, it is a set of tasks. So if you can automate some tasks in the process, that is also a quick win for the company. Now, just to debunk the capabilities of RPA, in fact, this is a very good diagram of what RPA is and what RPA isn't. RPA is computer coded, so you need to write code. It's low code, right? But yet still it is code. It is programs that replace human performing repetitive rule-based tasks. So here the most important thing is rule-based. It is something that is done repetitively, right? And you have cross-functional and cross-application macros. Like I've said previously, just like you have macros in Excel, which is limited to Excel, RPA allows you to use cross-platform interaction. For example, you can choose any portal. You can even do web scraping, okay, with RPA. Now, what RPA isn't, it's not a walking, talking Autobots, because there tend to be a confusion. Since we have the word robots, lots of people look for physically existing machines, right? And it's not artificial intelligence. I guess I got this question lots of time. Is RPA AI? In fact, it is not. But we can include AI as part of RPA, right? This is what we call hyper automation. Now, what RPA can do is open email and attachment, log into web enterprise application, moving files and folders, copying and pasting, filling in forms. In fact, you have a wide varieties of tasks that an RPA can do. I will just share another simple experience, which I realized was I started to automate my own task initially. So I used to come to work. I had to download all the emails, all the PDF from certain email, classify those emails, categorize them. What I did was I devised a robot to be able to categorize my email as per their importance. That was one simple thing. The next thing I did was I started to use RPA to download attachment from my email. And this was simple task, yet it helped me a lot, right? Another process which we automated, me and my team, was to input information in the portal. And that information, it used to take a person 8 hours per day for 3 weeks to be able to enter all the information. And the information that he entered was critical because that would help us to get a certification from GOTS. This is a credential body that provides certification with regard to cotton so that we could export our product. And what we did was we understood the whole process. We tried to optimize it, did lots of brainstorming. And at the end, we were able to automate it. And the same task, instead of being performed 8 hours a day for 3 weeks, the robot could do it in 5 to 6 hours, right? So lots of time saving capabilities. Now, why do we need RPA? First, it reduces costs. By automating tasks, you can save nearly 30% you can achieve at least 30% of efficiency. You have better customer experience because RPA, if the data is correct, if all the data are correct, the RPA will not make mistake as a human being. Lots of time, I guess you might have encountered it yourself. When you're collecting data, it might happen that instead of a 3, you put an 8 there because of fatigue. So an RPA will not do that. Lower operational risk, like I've said, eliminating human errors, improve internal process. In fact, this is very interesting because you have lots of existing process in a company and this has never been revisited. So the way it was done was transferred from generation to generation, or I would say from person to person. Nobody knows whether it is an efficient way of doing things or not in a non-efficient way. So by leveraging on RPA technologies, we have business analysts that go and look at the process and see how it can be optimized. And lots of time, it might happen that a process does not use RPA, but it has been optimized nevertheless because the business analyst was able to find quick turnaround in terms of how to save time. even by doing manual processes. And it does not replace existing IT system. This is a myth that needs to be debunked. Lots of time I got this question, will RPA replace human being? Never, it will never replace human being because it is unable to make complex decisions. We have the ability to think, we have the ability to make complex decisions, we have the ability to decide on the fly, and this no robot, no AI can do that, at least not for the next 50 years, right? So RPA is here to allow us to kind of democratize, or I would say transfer our dumb work in a way between code. What I mean by that is every repetitive or mundane task that we feel lazy of doing, let's be honest with it, doing data entry all day long is tedious. So if you can find a way to automate it, that would have been great, but RPA allows us to do that. Now, what are those key benefits? You have more tasks given at handled at a given time. With RPA today, instead of focusing on one process, you can allow an RPA to do multitasking. That is, automate process in a sequential manner. So once a process has been completed, the same robot can jump to another process. In fact, in my company, we have right now, if I remember correctly, we have around 45 to 50 robots, which is working on a day-to-day basis. And I will tell you one thing, there's a shipping department, which normally had 15 people, right? Today is working with 4 to 5 people only. Now, not because RPA replaced those person, but what happened was when those person left, what we did was instead of hiring another person, what we did was we tried to kind of cluster all the repetitive tasks and we started to automate them, right? You have significant cost reduction. You have shorter service time and improved customer satisfaction. Like I've told you, instead of waiting for a person to complete the data entry, let's say in terms of 8 hours per day, a robot can do the same task in maybe 1 hour or 2 hours. Errors are eliminated. Employees are more focused. And I will tend to say that when I presented RPA in my company, lots of people were resistant to change. Lots of heads of department were concerned. What would happen? Is it something that will replace us, will take our job and so on? Even the data entry operators were not happy, would say, no, I don't want to give you my process because if you are able to automate everything, what will I do? And today, what is happening, I'm seeing the reverse. Lots of data entry operators are saying, hey, can you come in my place and look at this process? Can we automate that? Why? Because they can see the benefit of it. Instead of doing those mundane tasks, they are doing other tasks. So what they are doing is they are reskilling. In fact, the plan was to be able to ask those data entry operator to start, I would say, not developing complex RPA solution, but to start to play with RPA capabilities and see whether they could automate simple tasks, very simple tasks. And of course, you have quick return on investment. So what is the RPA journey? The first step is to discover. In fact, what I did was I created what we call a center of excellence. Now, as part of the center of excellence, you have the project sponsor, which is most of the time the CEO. You have the business analyst, you have the RPA developer, and then you have the project manager. So the idea is to be able to find process that brings value to the organization. You don't just automate for the sake of automation. You need to look at whether the RPA process that you're automating will help the company to become more efficient, will help, let's say, for example, for better customer satisfaction, and so on. And then what we do is define the scope. We do some research, we synthesize, that is, we discuss and try to understand if it is it can be directly automated or we can improve further. Then you ideate, you do prototype, you validate. This is a design part. And finally, you implement, test, and deploy, right? So basically, this is, and of course, lastly, you adopt. And adopt is where it's very important because you have to educate the end user about using the RPA. And education, I guess, what I adopted in my company was I did the reverse. So first, what I did was I created awareness. Then we started with the discovery, design, develop, and of course, adopt. So this is a very simple RPA use case where we used a robot to monitor email folder. This is what I told you. In fact, what it did was it downloaded invoice, and with the help of OCR, it was it was able to capture information and put it on an Excel sheet. Now, what I mean by that, because this is something very interesting, you have different invoices from different suppliers, right? So what the RPA do is it downloads the attachment, opens the attachment, and you have the OCR that look for the specific information that is required, right? Once this is identified, the robot copies that information, that text, and put it into an Excel sheet for validation. Now, why we could not do an end-to-end automation? Because we still had to do manual intervention. So the human counterpart is still very important here, because OCR technology is quite complex, right? You cannot get 100% accuracy because this is mathematically impossible. So you always need to have manual intervention. So let's assume that you can see here the girl, which is in the image, right? Instead of doing all that step, what she had to do only was to cross-verify whether the information is correct. Another RPA use case that we adopted was web scraping. So what was web scraping in our context? We had lots of clients with their information on their website. And since you cannot use Beautiful Soup or any other codes to directly scrape those information, right? They had security techniques implemented to prevent us from scraping their data directly. So what we did was we used a robot to look for those information from their website. So this is a simple example of where RPA can become very interesting. Now, what are the limitations of RPA? RPA is a great technology, but you still have some limitations that you need to consider. So in the context of invoice processing, RPA is best viewed as an additional cost reduction lever. So you cannot expect the RPA to take decision on behalf of you. Yes, there are some decision making which is very simple. Either it's yes or no, depending on whether the data is correct or not. But complex decision cannot be undertaken by RPA. So it also has limited capabilities in case of unstructured data input. If I take the invoice processing again, as long as the invoice is typewritten, the OCR will be able to read it properly. The RPA will work correctly, right? With minimum amount of error. But if it is handwritten, then you will start seeing lots of problems because the OCR is unable to read it properly. And lots of time, instead of the RPA validating it, it will ask for the human counterpart to cross-verify. Furthermore, diverse input coming from multiple sources can be a challenge because the way they present their data can be very different and you have to harmonize all those data. In fact, it's not impossible. That's why I said it can be a challenge. It's not impossible, but it can be very complex. And there will always be a volume and cost threshold below which RPA is not an economic solution. In a business perspective, if you look at an RPA license, a typical license costs around $1,200 to $1,500 along with the studio for development. So if you purchase a license just to do, let's say, for example, email classification, then it's not cost effective. So you need to find lots of use cases which can help you to maximize the way you use your robot. And of course, lastly, applying RPA to a broken and inefficient process will not fix it. In fact, I have put a lot of emphasis on this. That's why I said the business analyst is very, very important in determining the right business process to automate. Now, this is a simple explanation of what RPA is. I hope it was insightful. I've tried to present it in an organizational perspective, how we think and how we adopted RPA at Artinits. But of course, we have lots of use cases. We have if I need to talk about RPA, I can take the next 5 to 6 hours to just talk about RPA and its capabilities. But I've tried to trim it down so that you could have an idea of what RPA is and what are the capabilities, and also what RPA isn't, right? I would like to thank you for attending my presentation. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.
If you have any direct questions, you can put it on the chat or on the pigeonhole. That's also fine. Otherwise, we will pass on the floor to Michael.
Right, thanks, Dr. Mohabeer.
Thank you, Dr. Mohabeer.
Thank you.
Right, guys, feel free to use the pigeonhole, pigeonhole.at/GDSC-RPA, and get your questions answered. All right, you visit this website and enter the passcode GDSC-RPA, and we'll get your questions answered in a while. All right, maybe the first question by Thomas. Dr. Mohabeer, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So may I know if this device can pass the I am not a robot checkbox? Okay. And how much better it is compared to Selenium WebDriver? Yeah, of course. Selenium, you have Beautiful Soup. You have also, we have explored other solution, but sometimes some website you're unable to scrape the information. I'll reply the second part first. And it can be quite difficult to scrape data from different websites. In fact, legally speaking, I highly doubt if every website allow you to scrape the information. But sometimes for let's say, for example, what we did was for Adidas. This is a typical client that we applied web scraping. When we entered their website, it's very different from what we expected. We tried Beautiful Soup, not Selenium. So we tried Beautiful Soup. It did not work. In fact, the data that we were getting was either corrupted or not in the way we wanted it. So what we did was we said, hey, if I have to put someone here, sit down and write all the information that we are getting, how would it be? And we started by that, actually. We had an intern that would go on each product that was available there and look for the feedback, for example, the number of stars and so on. And then what we did was we automated this part and used an RPA to just browse through or navigate through the website and collect the information that we required. In fact, it was the easiest way as compared to technologies such as Beautiful Soup or Selenium. Now, if this device can pass the I am not a robot checkbox, we tried it for fun. It worked. I don't know if in every context it will work, but we tried it on our side and it did work. So we were able to fool the I am not a robot checkbox. That's why I guess today, in terms of security, what is happening is you have to select among different images to enforce security. But just to put I'm not a robot checkbox, this can be done very easily by a robot. I hope I answered your question.
All right, thanks, Dr. Mohabeer. We'll proceed to the next question. All All right, maybe Dr. Mohabeer can answer also this question. What are the challenges in implementing RPA, especially since you've worked in the real industry and like you've implemented some bots on your own?
Sure.
Maybe can you highlight like some challenges that you face when you're implementing RPA?
Sure. In fact, the most important challenge, let me be honest with you here, from an industry perspective, what I realized the most important challenge is to be able to convince the people to adopt RPA, because lots of time in their mindset, I do expect, I do understand them, is they tend to believe that, I don't know where they got this, it's in movies or somewhere else, is that a robot will take over their task. And since they tend to believe that that's the best they can do, which is data entry. So if you steal that from them, then they will not have a job. So what they do is they make our life very difficult. So if you ask for a process, if you ask for information from an end user, very rarely you get the information as it is. So you have to use different types of skills, observational skills, maybe sometimes recoding, of course, with his permission. And I guess this is one of the most important challenge in implementing RPA. And secondly is to be able to understand whether you can effectively automate all the part. You need to understand first whether we can make the process as simple as possible. Because lots of time, again, I've seen that in the industry is once you look at the process, you say, hey, I can automate it, and you start automating. In fact, the coding part in an RPA lifecycle is maybe 5 to 10%. It's understanding of the process. What do you want to achieve? How can I achieve that? How can I make it simpler, first of all? And then you look at the different part. And to be able to navigate through those challenges, I know UiPath because I work with UiPath a lot. This is one platform that I love. And you also have a community version. You have what we call a PDD, which is a process design documentation. So it helps you to document everything from start to end. So what is the existing process? What is the desired process? Which part has been eliminated? Which part has been added to help the robot? It's about understanding the process. That's the most important, I would say, task that needs to be done. And this is indeed very, very, very challenging.
All right, thanks for the insightful information. Okay, we have a couple of more questions that are yet to be answered. All right, maybe can we answer this question? Since there are lots of RPA software, right, in the market, there are a lot of emerging ones as well. And I think previously you mentioned that you are you're using UiPath. Maybe can you like share what are the advantages and what like the trade-offs between UiPath and using other RPA software that's currently available in the market?
Sure. If I remember correctly, I was comparing Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and UiPath. In fact, the only platform that offers community license is UiPath, hence the reason for adopting UiPath. It allows you to play with the platform to understand the different features, and this kind of helped me to decide which in which direction to go. So right now, if you want to, let's say, you want to use RPA for educational purposes, I do believe community version is the best solution, right? I do not think that Automation Anywhere or Blue Prism has community version, as far as I can remember. So for me, it's a straight forward decision that is to go with UiPath. But of course, it depends on how you want to tackle your problem. Also, in terms of, I do remember I have a friend who works on Automation Anywhere. Automation Anywhere takes more time. I'm not advocating for UiPath. I'm just using UiPath. In fact, we did a challenge. If we have a process, which one is more easy? In which platform it is easier to automate? And UiPath won by a landslide because of its ease of use and available features. Yeah.
Are there, like, in terms of performance, are there like any significant performance benefits of UiPath compared to like other products in the market right now?
I've never, to be honest with you, I've never checked it as such in terms of performance. But for me, I've worked a bit on automation anywhere. From a personal perspective, I do believe, because I've also worked with the team developing RPA at a very early instance, early stage. Sorry, I was in South Africa working with the R&D team, and we tried to make it as simple as possible. And we had a lot of focus on performance, and that's why you have community version, because UiPath is very confident that its product is one of the best in the market. And you will see that it's not just one solution that is the UiPath Studio. You have a range of solutions. For example, you have hyper automation, you have task capture, you have process mining, and so on. These were developed based on customer feedback. So being there, having been there for a few weeks, I know that they listen very carefully to what the customer asks and try as much as possible to answer their needs.
All right, thanks for the insightful advice and information. All right, so next question we have is, which programming language is used for writing code for RPA?
In fact, it's most of the time, especially in UiPath, it's drag and drop, right? And you have some VBA that you need to use. Yeah, one of the limitations which I forgot to share is RPA platform as of now, for example, UiPath is native to Windows, so you cannot use it on a Mac. Yeah, so this is very important for end users to understand. But normally it's VBA. You have some basic coding skill, but I guess the problem solving skill is more important than the programming language. UiPath uses a lot of VBA. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Sure. The next question we have from Lavish is implementing RPA cost effective for small and medium enterprises?
Sure, it is. It is very effective. Why? Because even in a small and medium enterprise, you have lots of processes. I would advise you not to purchase a robot for one process, but you need to identify a set of processes, assess its value, and then decide whether you want to go forward with an RPA or not. Another example is you have invoice processing, which is very tedious. Having an RPA is a very good solution to solve that problem. I guess lots of companies are now adopting invoice processing with RPA and OCR at the back end. So it is very cost effective. And in fact, I have started to implement for a new, for some small SMEs, some robots in Mauritius. They are starting to see the potential of it. Yeah.
All right, thanks for the insight. Okay, the final question we have before we head on to our workshop and hands-on portion for today is, are there any potential or legal or ethical ramifications of using RPA, such as web scraping? I think just you mentioned a bit there, a bit of like scraping illegal data, or like it might be restricted to some certain users. But besides these general implications, are there anything else that you are aware of?
Yeah, I was very afraid of this question actually. In fact, yes, there is potential legal or ethical ramification if you use web scraping as it is. But if you're using RPA, since it is emulating a human being, I would tend to say, what is the difference between someone looking at the website and capturing the information on a notebook and having an RPA capturing the information and storing it in an Excel sheet? So on this perspective, you can make a case out of it. But if you're scraping the information or putting web crawlers, or I don't know which technologies, then of course there are potential legal and ethical ramification. But at the end of the day, if you have a website, you have information which is public, okay, you need to expect that people will make use of the information, right? It's just how they capture the information. Instead of using RPA, what if I tell you that you can just take a picture of the website? You will still capture the information, but in a different way. So using RPA, I guess it minimizes the aspect of legal and ethical ramification, because you're not actually going at the back end and scraping the information. What is happening is you're just mimicking a human being.
Understood. All right. Thanks for giving us such descriptive explanations. And we have couple of more questions that just came in. And yeah, this one is, how does RPA differ from airflow?
To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with airflow, so I will not be able to answer this question, unfortunately.
Okay, sure. All right, I think we have our final question. Yeah, I think, what are the job prospects for RPA engineers? And yeah, I think in general, like the market condition, if you're able to describe how are they sourcing for like RPA, or people who are capable of like using RPA to automate daily tasks.
Now, if you look at RPA engineers as well as software developer, I guess on a business perspective, you need to look at what are the problems these people can solve for us, for the company, and what is the business benefits that we can get out of it. For example, if you're a software developer working for a company, let's say you need to develop an ERP. As a business person, what I would look at is how will the ERP help my business, and then I will invest on that person. Same as RPA engineers, if you're able to convince, for example, in Mauritius, if you're able to convince the CEOs that, hey, I'm going to make your company, let's say 80% more efficient because I'm adopting RPA, then definitely there will be early adopters. You have early, late adopters, and you have leaders and laggards in terms of RPA. I do believe in Mauritius, we are still at an infant stage in terms of the capabilities of RPA in several organizations. It's only now that I can see some companies adopting RPA, but truly speaking, RPA engineers have lots of prospect. Now, in terms of salary, it depends on country to country. In Mauritius, I have at least two RPA developers. They are paid the same as a software developer. There's not much difference in terms of software development and RPA engineers, because they can navigate. Sometimes they do software development, sometimes they do RPA, depending on how many RPA, how many robots we have to develop. But you have lots of prospects. I do believe that RPA, based on my personal experience, RPA is the first step toward building AI. Why? Because it allows us to capture data, okay, put it in the format that we require. I'm not talking about computer vision. I'm not talking about NLP, but I'm talking about simple solutions, simple AI solution for doing analytics, for example, for doing data science. I've used that in my company. We've been able to create dashboards with RPA at the backend collecting information. And then we have AI models that analyze those information and push it in the dashboard. So lots of prospect. But in terms of salary, unfortunately, from my experience, it's same as a software developer.
All right, thanks for sharing, Dr. Mohabeer. Yeah, I think that's all we have for Q&A. There'll be another Q&A session after the workshop portion. Yeah, so feel free to log in the Pigeonhole and leave your questions and get it answered at the end of the session. All right, thanks, Dr. Mohabeer, for the insightful session of introducing to us what RPA is. I'm pretty sure everyone learned a lot from your sharing. And yeah, thanks, Dr. Mohabeer, for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have our RPA demo and hands-on activity by Wei Hong.
Oh, can you see my screen? Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Wei Hong. I'll be your guide throughout this hands-on activity portion of this workshop. So first, I'll show you guys so I'll show everyone a demo of what the completed code will look like. So in your participants copy of the folder that you have downloaded, you'll see this Excel file called GDSC. So imagine that this is an Excel file for an event that there are many participants who are going to attend. So there's a Google form that we have created, and let's say there's a Google form in which for each person in this Excel file, you need to enter it into this Google form and submit it. So what we are going to do at the end, throughout these hands-on activities, we are going to create an RPA robot to automate the submission of every row and every single detail in this Excel file. So I'm going to run the demo right now. So eventually what a robot will do is that it will read all the data from the Excel file with regards to the details of each specific person. It will then type it into a Google form and submit it automatically. So you can imagine the amount of time that this robot will save. If for each entry you save maybe 20 seconds, if you have 1,000 entries, that's basically 20,000 seconds that are saved already. And not only are you saving time, you're basically minimizing any possibility of there being any errors or any typos, etc. Okay, so I'm going to pause the robot here. Okay. And now we'll proceed with the hands-on activity of this portion. So first, in your participants copy, I need everyone to double click on the folder called main, and you'll basically open up UiPath Studio X for you. So now I'll give a brief introduction to UiPath Studio. So this is basically your main page, and now I'll give you an introduction to the user interface. So on the left side over here, you can see this is called the activities toolbar. So this is where you will select the activities to put into your code. For example, if I'm going to use an Excel file, I'll just simply click and then drag and drop over into the center. Or maybe if for some reason I need to use a click activity, I'll drag and drop it. If I want to use a for each activity, I'll drag and drop it as well. So your left side is the activities toolbar where you'll find all the various activities that you want to be used in your robot. In the middle is your design panel. So basically this area will be your design panel, and it's basically where all your code goes and where your workflow for your activities will be. On the right side over here, it will be your object repository, data manager, as well as your properties panel. So sometimes they will be hidden, so you can just simply see them all the way at the right of your screen, and you can click on them to open them up. And you realize that if the panel is not pinned, once you click away, it might disappear. So to make it permanently stick, you can sort of click this pin icon over here to pin and unpin it. So and then it will appear at the bottom here. So I'm going to unpin the data manager. And now my properties panel is still pinned, but I can choose to unpin it and it will shift all the way to the right. So I'm just going to keep my properties panel pinned because that will be what we are using today. So what the properties panel does is for each specific activity, they have their own set of properties. So for example, this activity is called use application or browser. These are its properties. If maybe I want to edit the properties for my click activity, what I have to do is I have to select my click activity, and then I will see the properties for it over here. So we will not be using the object repository for today. And what data manager does is it helps to keep track of all your variables when you're coding. So for those of you who have programming experience, variables basically help to store your information in your code. So I'm going to delete all my variables first because we'll be coding from scratch today. And now I'll clear the design panel. So at the very top, this is your ribbon panel where you can do things such as running your code. Obviously, you can save your code and you can undo, redo, or use other functions that we will not explore today. So now we are going to start with the actual coding part of this workshop. So first, I need everyone to also, one key thing to know is that the activities toolbar is a search toolbar over here. So if you're unable to find it because there are just too many activities available, you can simply type. So for example, the first activity that we are going to use is called use Excel file. I'm going to click it inside here. And then I'm going to drag and drop it over to my design panel. So what does this activity do? It allows us to integrate UiPath and to read or modify an Excel file. So this folder, so there are two ways that we can tell the robot to select the Excel file. We can either type in the exact workbook path over here, which is basically your file path, or we can simply use the File Explorer to browse for a file. So I'm going to click on this folder icon over here. And then I'm going to double click and select the GDSC Excel file. So you can see that what this does is that it has automatically loaded the file path into this text box over here. So we're going to leave the default options selected, which are save changes and create if not exist. Next, I want everyone to add a read range activity and put it inside the use Excel file activity. So you can see that it is inside of here and it's not outside. So what does read range activity allow us to do? It basically allows us to read a specific sheet from the Excel file that's been selected over here. So in this case, we are reading a specific sheet from the GDSC.xlsx Excel file. So for range is basically your specific sheet. So I'm going to click the plus sign, hover over Excel, and you can see you can select sheet 1. Why? Because in our Excel file, there's only one sheet available, and the sheet name is sheet 1 down here. So obviously, after our robot has read the data from Excel, it needs to store it into a variable because we don't want to keep Excel open the entire time. So under Save To, we're going to create a new variable. And I want everyone to follow, for the variable names, please follow the names that I'm using in this demo so that it will assist us in debugging your code if there are any issues. So we are going to name it Excel out, short form for Excel output. And then under the properties panel over here, with regards to read range, we are going to select this option called has headers. Why? Because our Excel file has headers at the top of each column. Okay, so now I need everyone to open up Google Chrome. And inside the folder that has been given to you, there's a text document with the link to the RPA Google form. So I need everyone to open up this link inside Google Chrome. Well, I'll send the link in the chat as well. Okay, so after everyone has this page open in the background, navigate back to UiPath, and then drag or use application / browser activity. Okay, and drag it outside of the Excel file, outside of the use Excel file activity. Why? Because we have what the robot has done is it has opened up this Excel file. It has read the data from this sheet into a variable that has been stored in this code. So we no longer need to keep the Excel file open. We no longer need the Excel file for any reason. So what this activity does is that it allows the robot to perform functions inside the application or browser that we select. So I'm going to click on the indicate application to automate box here. And then I'm going to click on our Google Chrome. Okay, and you'll see that it has automatically loaded the browser URL for us. Next, I want everyone to drag in a for each row in data table activity and drag it inside of the use browser Chrome RPA form activity. Why? Because now everything we are doing, we want the robot to do on the form page inside Google Chrome. So what this for each row in data table activity does is essentially a for loop. So it will iterate through every single row in our data table. So you can see that UiPath is quite smart. It has automatically selected Excel out as the data table to iterate through. So if you look at the Excel sheet, what the robot will do using this for loop, it will iterate through every single row. So you'll first iterate through row 2, then you'll move on to row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, etc. and so on. And you have automatically identified that there are 9 columns. So now I want everyone to drag a read row item and drag it inside the for each row in data table. So what read row item does is it allows us to read a specific column, or rather a specific value from the current row that we are iterating through. So you can see for each row in data table, inside this activity, the current row that we are iterating through, UiPath will create its own temporary variable. It's called current row. So inside read row item, we want to specify the row that we want to get the data from, which is called current row. And UiPath allows us to either select the column number or the column name. So you see, if I hover over for number, it'll say the index of the column whose value is to be retrieved from the data row. If I hover over the name, it'll say the name of the column whose value is to be retrieved from the data row. So to make things simpler, we're going to select the name option. And so for this specific activity, we are going to be reading data from the name column. So this specific column over here. So you can see that the header name is called name, which is why in our code, I'm going to type name as the column name. Okay. Make sure that there are no empty spaces or new lines in your text, because it will affect how the robot runs. So just make it just these 4 characters only. So I'm going to save. So what this activity does is you'll navigate to the current row, you'll find the column there's the name called name, and afterwards you will save the value into an output. So what we are going to do, we are going to store that into a variable, obviously. And we are going to and so I can click this plus sign over here. I'm going to click create variable. And what I'm going to name the variable, I'm going to name value. So as I mentioned before, please follow this naming convention and use the exact name that I'm using over here. I'm going to select OK. So the robot will navigate to current row. You'll go to the value inside the column, which has the header name. You'll grab the value or the data, and you'll put it into a variable called name value, which you have just created. So now what I want everyone else to do is to try doing this, but for all the other all the other columns in our Excel sheet. So I'm going to give everyone about 5 to 10 minutes to do so. And to make things simpler, I've also compiled a table for everyone here. So I'm going to just show it on my screen. There's no, you can ignore this one. Hold on. Okay. So everyone can just start when you feel like it. So I'll give everyone about 5 minutes to do this. So for the variables name, do follow the naming convention that is provided over here. So I'll stop at 8:09. Oh, and if there are any questions or anyone here is facing any issues, feel free to just ask in the Zoom chat, or if you don't want to ask on the public chat, you can always privately message Michael, who will help you with your queries or redirect them to me if needed. Okay, so it's 8:09. If there's anyone out there who is still doing, don't worry. I'll be doing it from my own code as well. So if there are any issues, y'all can just follow along. So I'm going to add a read row item for our ID number column. I'll create a variable. So you can see once you have variables inside UiPath, you can just use the variable instead. So if, for example, if I selected use name value here, it will save the value into the name value variable instead. I'm going to clear value, and then I'm going to create a variable. Next, I'm going to do it for dietary restrictions. Next, I'll do it for others. I'll do it for the other remarks column. I'll create for the age column. And lastly, I'll create one for the event column. So next, what I want everyone to do is to open up their data manager. It will either be at the bottom here if you have already pinned it, or if it's unpinned, it'll be on your right side. So do click on it. So you can see that all the variables that you have created are now inside the data manager. If I open down the drop down, I can see I can sort of set the scope as well as the data type along with default value of each variable. So what is data type? Data type is basically the type of data that is stored in your variable. You can see in this drop down, there are things such as Boolean, integer, strings, data tables, arrays. Scope refers to the scope in which your variable will be accessible from the code. So we don't really have to worry about this, but for those of you who have programming knowledge or who wish to explore further, you can simply Google and use the UiPath documentation. For default value, it basically be we can assign a default value to the variable if we do not assign our own value to it. So now I want everyone to follow the data types of the variables in here. So I'm going to set everything except age value to be a double. So take note, everything except age value, just click the drop down and set it to string. So I'm going to do it for event value. I'll do it for other remarks value. I'll do it for other value. And you will notice that after you have set the data type, UiPath automatically closes the dropdown. I'll set it for a dietary restrictions value, ID number, name value. And for Excel out, we'll keep it as a data table. Why? Because Excel out is a variable that stores all the data from an Excel file. Now for age value, this will be the only thing that is different along with Excel out. For each value, I want everyone to click on the drop down, select browse for types, and in here type system dot double. So your UiPath might lag a bit. And then double click double. Okay, so I'm going to show the table again for everyone. This should be the data type of your variables. Everything is a string except for Excel out, which is your data table, and your age, which is a system.double over here. Okay, so moving on. Now I want everyone to select a new activity called type 22. And then drag it after your read row item. So what does this activity do? It will allow the robot to type into a specific element or area in the browser or application that you have selected, which in our case is the Google Chrome form. So I'm going to click indicate to indicate a target for our robot to type into. You see that afterwards, UiPath will open up my Google Chrome. And you'll notice that because the ways these things are, if, for example, after I have selected indicate element, but maybe I want to click somewhere else or have a momentarily delay before selecting the element, I will not be able to do it. Why? Because the very first thing that I click will be the element that UiPath has selected. So just bear with me for this moment. I'm going to select what is your name. I'm going to select the answer box for what is your name. Because for this specific activity, we want UiPath to type into this text box. After I've selected the target, UiPath has this allows us to select this thing called an anchor. So what you can just imagine it as, it allows UiPath to be more stable and more accurate when typing into this specific text box. So we're just going to type the question name over here. Afterwards, on top right, I'm going to click confirm. Okay, so I'll open back up the Google Chrome form. I'll just clear all my values first, just in case. So once again, I'm going to go back to my UiPath. If you have accidentally selected the wrong element, don't worry. Just click on these 3 lines over here to indicate the options menu and then indicate the target on screen. So you can see that UiPath will sort of do something similar to scraping the web page, but it isn't really scraping. It will allow you to select the various elements. So what to do if for some reason you need a delay between the next click? For example, if I click right now, UiPath is going to select this specific box, but I want to maybe click a specific area and then you get UiPath to select that box afterwards. That will appear after I clicked it. So what you can do is use the F2 hotkey. After I press F2, you see there's a 5-second delay. I can click anywhere I want without UiPath sort of working. And then after a 5-second delay, UiPath will come back. So for this activity, we're going to type into the what is your name box. So I'm going to select the answer box as our element for UiPath to type into. For anchor, I'll just select the question. And I'm going to click confirm. So inside here, you'll see that UiPath has sort of also taken a mini screenshot. And inside this type this value, what we can do is we can either give UiPath a specific text to type into this text box. But think about what we are doing in this case, we are automating the submission of forms. So the value for every participant or every row will be different. So how are we going to get past that? We're going to get UiPath to type the variable inside instead. So what variable are we going to use for the what is your name text box? We are obviously going to use the name value. So clicking on this box and after opening properties, you'll see there's quite a lot of things here. So how does UiPath identify what to select? So I want everyone to look at under input. Next to target, there's this plus sign, and to click on it. So you'll see a few things here. You'll see things such as fuzzy selector, strict selector, as well as targeting methods. So how UiPath works is that depending on the targeting methods that you have selected, it will then use these targeting methods to always search for the specific element to interact with. So in this case, you can see the image and fuzzy selector is selected. So image is UiPath sort of takes a screenshot and ensures that the screenshot is the exact same before typing it in. And fuzzy selector, you see fuzzy selector over here. You click on the three dots to expand it. You'll see that it is sort of similar to when you open inspect element or when you look at the HTML or CSS code of a website. So this is how UiPath knows that, okay, this is a specific box that I want to type into. Okay, so now I'm going to drag another type into activity. Now I want UiPath to type into the what is your ID number box. So I'm going to select this as my element, and then I'm going to select the anchor, which is a question. I'm going to click confirm. And then for the variable, what do I want UiPath to type into? I obviously want it to type the ID number variable. Okay, so next we are going to do something a little bit different. We're going to use a set variable value activity. Okay. So what set variable value does is that it allows us to edit the value of a variable. So for the value to save, we're going to click the plus. We are going to first use this variable called age value. Okay. After I've selected age value, I'm going to click the plus again on the right side. I'll click open in advanced editor. So now I'm going to start typing. After age underscore value, I'll type a dot, and then I'll type toString in this format. You see that this will pop up. I'm just going to double select it, or you can type the entire thing out. Okay, I'll give everyone about 5 to 10 seconds. And then I'm going to click OK. So after you're done, the toString won't appear here, don't worry. To double check, you just open in advanced editor again. You'll see that the toString is still there. So what do I want to save age value toString to? I want to save it to, we're going to create a new variable here. We're going to call it age underscore value underscore string. The type will be text. Okay, now I'm going to click OK. In my data manager, we now have a new variable, age underscore value underscore string. So what have we done here? So the thing is, if I open my Excel sheet again, you notice that under the age column, all the values are numbers. So what happens when UiPath reads these values is it is saved as a data type called a double. But when UiPath wants to type in, but uses things such as type into, it requires the value that is typing to be a string, which in this case, if I created a type into activity and I simply put age value, UiPath will malfunction. Why? Because my age value is of type double. So what we have done here is we have used a function called toString to convert this age value, which is a double, we have converted it to a string. After we have converted it to a string, we then save this string value inside a variable called age underscore value underscore string. So now I'm going to give everyone about a minute or so to sort of do the same type into, but to do it for the what is your age box. So remember, element to select, just select this, your answer box over here. And for the anchor, just click on the question. Then afterwards, remember to set the value to type into. So I'll just give everyone about 30 seconds to 1 minute. So remember, if you have any questions, just send it in the Zoom chat or send a private message to Michael. Okay, so 1 minute has passed. No worries, you can just follow along what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to indicate the H box. Anchor will be the question. And then I'm going to click confirm. Oh, another thing to know is that periodically when you're coding, it's good practice. It's good practice to sort of save your file. Okay. For the variable, I'm going to select the H value string. Remember, H value string. Next, we are going to add a click activity because we want to click inside. We want to click the which event are you attending? Okay. I'm going to indicate the element. So I'm just going to choose any random element first. Okay. So first I'll select morning. For the anchor, I'm going to put the question. Okay. So now please pay more attention to this part if possible. Now I'm going to introduce this concept called dynamic selectors. So I'm going to select, so first click on the click activity, open up your properties, ensure your input and your target is opened up, and you'll see that what targeting methods have I chosen? I've chosen fuzzy selector and image. But what will happen when I run this robot? When I run this robot, regardless of what the event value is, it will always click on morning. Why? Because first of all, the robot has captured the image morning as the image to click on. With regard to fuzzy selector, you'll see that the selector that it has chosen is for the morning option only. So no matter what value my event value is when the robot is running, you always click morning for every single participant. So how do we get around it? We are going to use this thing called dynamic selectors. So it is dynamic because it always changes, it isn't static, it isn't fixed. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to change the targeting methods to be strict selector. So I'm not going to explain much about fuzzy or strict selectors, but basically strict selector is strict in the sense that the element must correspond 100% exactly to this selector for UFR to select it. Okay. After I selected strict selector, I'm going to click on the triple dots next to strict selector. And you'll see that this is sort of the element or the selector sort of code for this specific option. So what do we want to do? You see AA name is equals to morning. But instead, how we want UFR to identify the option to select is the AA name has to be equal to the specific text inside here. If I want UFR to select supper, AA name will be equal to supper. If I want UFR to select evening, AA name will be evening. So how am I going to do this? Remember that we have had the event value stored inside variables. I'm going to double click on morning. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click use variable. What variable am I going to select? I'm going to select the event value. Afterwards, I'm going to click confirm. And you see the event value is now a variable inside our selector code. So what this means is that when I'm running row 2, the event is supper. The selectors that UFR looks for will be AA name equals to supper. When I'm on row 3, the event is morning. The selector that UFR searches will be AA name is equals to morning. Now I'm going to click OK. So you notice that this is sort of the more complex part because this is in a sense that these options are flexible. It is not sort of a type into box where we can simply just throw whatever data we have inside. Instead, we have to work with the options that our Google form is giving us. Now I want everyone to drag another set variable value activity. For the value to save, we'll first select dietary restrictions value. I'm going to open in advanced editor. At the very start, I'm going to type split with an open bracket to use this function called a split function. I'm going to add a comma. I'm going to use inverted bracket, inverted commas. And then inside the inverted commas, I'm going to put a comma and a space. Afterwards, I'll close it with a close bracket. So I'm going to zoom in so that I'll give everyone about 30 seconds to type this in. So what this does is that for people who have existing coding knowledge, or maybe you have done something with Python before, this is sort of the split function. Okay, I'll explain more about it later. I'm going to click OK. Inside save to, I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it dietary array. Okay, for the type, I'm going to click advanced options. And I'm going to select array of t. And what my t will be, it will be a string. Okay, so I'll leave this here for about 10 seconds. Afterwards, I'll click OK. Okay, so what is going on here? You'll see in your Excel file, inside dietary restrictions, these values are essentially comma separated. So I'll just copy this out to Notepad, and then I'll open up the Google form. So for dietary restrictions, this is a multiple choice option. And not only that, it is possible for users to select multiple options. So how are we going to wait for this value in Excel file? This is the string that UiPath will read. So what we are going to do, we are going to use a split function. So the split function requires two parameters, or rather two inputs. I'm going to tell my split function that I want it to split this string, the one above, according to the comma and the space. Which is why back in our code. Okay, I'll just copy this out as well. Which is why this appears in our code and why we put this inside. So what will split do? Split function will return us an array that has been split up. So now our return array an array is basically a list, or rather a stack or whatever data structure that, is basically a group of items. So now our return array will contain vegetarian, vegan, and none. And so you can see that in our code, we have stored this return array into a variable called dietary array, which is why the data type of our dietary array is an array of strings. So you can see these square brackets over here, it basically means array. So it's an array that contains strings. So why do you want to do this? What is the thought process? Okay, at first I have a very long string. I need to split it up. I will split it up into an array. Afterwards, how do I deal with this array? I want to click on every single value in this array, which is where our next activity will come into play. And I want everyone to select a for each activity. What are we going to do? We are not going to perform an action for every single item in our dietary array. So what the for each activity does is that it will iterate through every element in an iterable. In this case, our iterable is our dietary array. It will give us a temporary variable called current item, as you can see over here. So you can sort of read it as for each current item in dietary array. So what do you want to do for each item inside this array here? We want to click on the corresponding checkbox. So obviously we're going to use the click activity. Okay. And now, just like what I've mentioned previously, we're going to use, let's say I select vegetarian first. Okay, my anchor, I'll set it to the question. I'll click confirm. Now, if you look at the properties panel, what are the targeting methods? Fuzzy selector and image. What is my image? Right now, what is the image stored inside UiPath? is the vegetarian text. For fuzzy selector, I'll open it up. You can see that it basically selects vegetarian, which will obviously not work because this means that if there are three, for each element inside this array here, at the first element, vegetarian, it will select vegetarian. For vegan, it will still select vegetarian. For none, it will select vegetarian again. So what are we going to do? We are going to make use of the dynamic variables that we have learned in our click activity up here. So I'll change the targeting methods to be strict selector. I'll deselect fuzzy selector and image. I'll open up strict selector. I'll double click on vegetarian. Now I'll right click because I want to replace it with something, and I'll use a variable. What variable am I going to use? You'll see that inside my drop down, current item does not appear. Why? Because current item is temporary. It's not something that I've created. So I'm going to have to type it out over here. Take note that the I is capital. Okay. So you can see here, and UiPath has very kindly given me a default value, which we can basically ignore because we have guaranteed that there will always be a value for UiPath to read. I'm going to click confirm. So you see current item has appeared here as a variable. I'm going to click OK. So now what I want everyone to do is so now will be the next sort of hands-on activity for everyone here to try. I need everyone to create the following activity. So I want everyone to perform a type into for this box over here, or type into for this any other remarks portion. And then afterwards, make sure to fill in some dummy data first. And then I want everyone to add an activity to click on the submit button, and another click activity to click on this submit another response button. Why are these two last steps important? Because I want, after my robot has filled out the data for a specific person, I want it to click submit, obviously, and I want it to click submit another response. So we will come back to this page where you can continue submitting the details for the next participant. So I'll give everyone about 10 minutes to do this. And once again, if there are any questions, if anyone needs any help, feel free to type in the Zoom chat or to DM Michael. And take note to put your activities outside this for each activity. Do not put it inside, put it outside here. Why? Because we do not want UiPath to type into, to perform those 4 actions for every single item in our array over here. Okay. Okay, so someone asked whether I could explain how do I edit morning and vegetarian again. Okay, so first of all, select the activity. In this case, it will be click. Go to your properties, so click the plus sign for input. Under input, find this thing called target. It will probably be closed if you haven't opened it already. So I'm going to click the plus sign again. Okay, so I need to change the targeting methods. I'll change it to only be strict selector. After I change it to only be strict selector, I will click on the 3 dots for strict selector over here. Okay. Then afterwards, this will be something like, okay, I'll just create a blank one to make things simpler. So once again, I'm going to change the targeting methods. Strict selector only. And edit the strict selector. So just now I selected vegetarian as a blank, as sort of a dummy option. I'll double click on vegetarian here, or I can simply just drag and select the text. Make sure to not touch the open inverted commas. After I've selected the text, I will right click and I'll click use variable. Okay. Okay, never mind, I'll just do it again. Double click, right click, use variable. For this case, I want to use current item. I'll click confirm and I'll click OK. So if you have any other questions, just feel free to type it in the chat or to direct it to Michael. I'll also put it in the text box for you guys. Okay, so someone asked me to show the settings for directory array again. So it's set variable value, directory array. This will be your value to save. I'll copy it over to Notepad for you. And then with regards to the data manager, it will be this thing called system.system with a open close square brackets. If you're unable to find it, you can click array of key and then select string and click OK. If you are still unable to find it, you can click browse for types type array. Sorry, you can just type system dot string. Hold on, the UI path is quite laggy. We are able to browse for it. You need to search. You need to search for it under this under this drop-down box. So array of t and then string. Okay, so it's 8:47 now. I'm going to start doing the code. If you are not done yet, do not worry. I will run it through with everyone here. Okay. So I'll first minimize this. I'll put a type into outside of this for each activity, remember? I'll type into this other box over here. The anchor will be the question. Oh, in this case, UI path has automatically detected an anchor for me, so I'm just going to take it. I'll click confirm. The value will be other value. Okay. Now I'll put another type into. Select the any other remarks option. And then I'll click confirm. The value will be the variable called other remarks value. Now I'll click on the click option. I'm going to indicate the submit button. Now this anchor, it can honestly be anything. UiPath has given me the same box as well, which is honestly okay. And I'll click confirm. Now next, I want to click the submit another response button. So remember at the very start where I told everyone that if you wanted to sort of pause UiPath and sort of have a delay between it searching for this, because right now, whatever I click, UiPath will select it as an element. Let's say I just randomly click. Let's say I wanted to go to the next page, which is the submit another response button. But if I click submit right now, UiPath will just select this as an element. Okay, I'm going to click confirm. But what I want to select is the submit another response button. So I'm going to put in some dummy data. Okay. Now obviously I can simply just click submit now and go to the next page and then open UiPath and then use a click activity on the submit another response button. But let's say that was not possible for whatever reason. I'm going to click indicate target on screen. So now I want to select the submit another response button, but it's not available on this page yet. And I cannot click anything because if I click anything, UiPath will automatically select that. I'm going to press F2. It will give me a 5-second delay. I'll click submit. Now I'm at this page. And now UiPath will automatically open back up and I can click on the submit another response button. For the anchor, I'll just select the RPA form above and then I'll click confirm. So now we are done. Hopefully, I'm going to run the robot. Hopefully everything works fine on the first try. I'll open this page back up. Now take note that when you run the robot, you have to close your Excel file if it is already open. So I'll close this. And fingers crossed, I'm going to run this. Oh yeah. So now I have a validation error. It means that it says that I have a variable already declared. So I'm going to close it. I'm going to open up my data manager. I'm going to delete. So along the way, when I was coding something, I accidentally created a variable called current item. I'm going to delete it. When in actuality, current item inside this for each current item in here, it was supposed to be a temporary variable. So just to double check everything, I'm going to open up my data manager for this click activity. I'm going to open my strict selector. I'm going to type I'm going to click confirm. I'm going to click OK. Sorry, give me a moment. I'll delete my current item again. I will open my strict selector. And now you state that this variable argument current item is not defined in the current scope, which is okay because when the robot is running, current item will be defined. So I'm going to run it. Now UiPath is going to open up my Excel file. It will read in the data, then it will close it, and everything should run smoothly. So once again, if you have any questions, if you have any problems that you are currently facing, just drop Michael a text in the Zoom chat or ask in the public Zoom chat if you want, and both of us will help you with all your queries. So now UiPath will automatically submit the data for every single row in the Excel file. So now UiPath has finished submitting everything for my Excel file. So you can see at this very top here, it says last run successful. So now we are basically done with the code. And if you have any issues, that we have also provided you with a master copy, which is basically the completed code inside the Google link that we have provided for the participants to download everything. So you can refer to that as well. And if there are any questions, do please ask in the chat or send a direct message to Michael. So I'll give about 1 or 2 minutes if there are any questions right now. Okay, so I received one question which someone asked that, is it possible to extract this as an individual program so someone can run this without opening UiPath? So unfortunately, no. What we are doing this is that we are running it as a community version, which means that we are not paying any money. We're using this for free. So someone will have to install UiPath, install the specific plugins that we have asked you to install, such as the Excel and the Google Chrome plugin. Afterwards, you have to open your code file and run it. But for a professional environment, UiPath is sort of able to, let's say I build my own code. I can use a cloud data server or cloud hosting to run my own code on the cloud. So in a sense, no one else will need to run this code file manually. If you're asking whether this program can sort of be translated into a .exe executable file, then that is not possible. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop the Q&A for debugging, and I'll pass the time back to Michael for a final Q&A. So thank you to everyone for bearing with me.
All right, thanks, Rihom. All right, so if you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask in the Zoom chat, and we'll get your questions answered. Maybe I'll give you guys 2 minutes or 1 to 2 minutes for you to ask questions, and we hope we'll answer. Yeah. Okay, it seems like there are no questions, so I'll just talk a bit more about GDSC NUS. Okay, so our Hack for Good 2023, it's our flagship hackathon held annually, where students build solutions to solve challenge statements targeted at community issues. So yeah, for this year, registration opens really soon. So yeah, do stay tuned, and I'll send all the links via Zoom chat. So you can follow our socials and keep in touch with us. And yeah, our previous Tech for Good workshops include cybersecurity, portfolio website, and backend as a service. You can view those workshops. They'll be beneficial if you are going to join the Hack for Good 2023 hackathon. And those workshops will be available in our YouTube channel. And this workshop will also be uploaded in our YouTube channel. And yeah, if you are interested in exploring about what we do as a student chapter, feel free to check us out at dsc.comp.nus.edu.sg. All right, thanks everyone for attending. We've come to the end of the workshop. And yeah, we hope that you found this workshop informative and beneficial. And yeah, rest well and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks everyone for attending. I hope everyone enjoyed the hands-on as well. Yep.